Okay, so I may be a little late on this, but as you know, I'm a bit of a Manhunt enjoyer and better late than never, so I gotta talk about the leaked prototype, right? Well, two early builds actually, one for the original Manhunt dated possibly 2002 to 2003, but really unknown, and a build of Manhunt 2 for the PSP dated February 5th, 2007. So these aren't the earliest builds ever. I mean, it's no Vienna cut or anything like that. The Manhunt 2 build is a little bit less notable, I would say, as it was pretty late into development, although there are some significant differences. But Manhunt 1 has like a completely unused level, new menus, character models, voices, everything, and it's really cool and interesting, at least if you're a big fan of this lesser known Rockstar series like I am. So I thought we'd kind of take a look through them here and talk about some of the cool stuff I found in there. So starting with the first game, we got a crazy new main menu here right out of the gate, and honestly it's really good and very polished. This could have been the final screen, but I still like the original, so I can't really say that this one is better. I mean, it's a lot brighter, less dark and gritty, but it's still got that, you know, VHS old school vibe to it. I also like the sound effects here, very crispy. Also, shout out to Ignis for all the gameplay and footage for Manhunt 1. Also, stop right here, this screen is beautiful, we just do not get UI like this in games anymore, it's sad, but also there's a lot going on here. This guy, right, this looks to be a jury gang member, which is interesting, because the jury is actually a cut gang that doesn't appear in the final version, or even in this one. So it's definitely interesting that this art is here. Maybe you could just say it's a skins member, but this looks to be taken directly from the original jury artwork, or at least is inspired by it with the hockey mask and the baseball bat and the pose and everything. Also, if we go to the scene selection, we get a look at some of the levels which have a lot of placeholder names, like, you know, Zoo 1, Zoo 2, Prison, Church, Mall, things like that. But look at the first level, usually occupied by the hoods, but it's called Jury Turf. Now, I talked a little bit more in depth about the jury in the Lost and Cut content video if you want to know more about them and the rest of the Cut gangs, as well as a lot of the other Cut content and stuff, but the basics are that it's an early version of the Skins, which is the white supremacist gang. However, it seems like they would have played a different role, possibly having to do with the corruption of Carcer City, like how some of the hoods are off-duty cops. Maybe the jury could have originally had this concept going, as the hoods ended up replacing the jury as the first hunters that you encounter in level 1, which is actually called Born Again in the final version. I do like this placeholder cutscene thing. Now, as a lot of other people have pointed out, this looks a lot like GTA 3 in a lot of ways, which makes sense given it was released in October of 2001, GTA 3 was, and Manhunt didn't come out till 2003, and this build is probably from like a year earlier, maybe? We don't really know. Also, here's our placeholder Starkweather, probably just a Rockstar employee.
Come on, Cash. If we work together on this, we both get the big rewards, so get your shit together. I'll try to direct you as much as I can, but you're my guy on the ground. Okay? It's up to you. You ready? Camera. Action.
No Brian Cox, that's for sure, but, you know, he gets the job done.
These streets are being patrolled by gangs. They're scum, just like you. And they're here to hunt you down and cut you up. I'll try to direct you as best I can, but other than that, you're on your own. It's up to you. Okay, are you ready? Camera, action.
As for Cash, we've seen this model before. Actually, you can find it throughout the base game as corpses in a bunch of different levels, like in Border Patrol, Kill the Rabbit, and Key Personnel. There are even spikes near the entrance of Starkweather's mansion with Beta Cash's heads on them. A lot of people seem to prefer this older model compared to the newer one, I guess, that we got. Personally, I prefer the final version of Cash, but let me know what you think. The UI is pretty different regarding the HUD, nothing too drastic, but I definitely prefer the more minimalistic approach of the base game. Cash's run animation is definitely way worse here too when compared to the final version, which still looks good today and isn't really something anyone talks about, but it looks way better than any of the running animations in San Andreas or Vice City. This one is just way too stiff and he's cupping his hands like he's a Lego minifigure. Not surprising given most of the animations aren't finished either, so this was definitely just a placeholder animation, I think. Although someone did say this might be a run animation used by one of the Hood gang members. I'm not really sure if it applies to like all of them or if they even have different run animations compared to other gangs, but yeah. Speaking of the executions, yeah, there's not really any audio and the animations are also pretty stiff and definitely unfinished. Nothing really to note here. The prototype also seems to be a lot brighter compared to the final release, at least in Ignis's gameplay. I saw some other versions that looked a little bit darker, so maybe it's just this gameplay here. But it still does retain that creepy atmosphere that Manhunt is known for, so yeah. Most of what happens in the first level is relatively unchanged though. There's the basic tutorial section for hiding in shadows, executions, and combat. The music is also a little different, I think. Still great ambience, just different.
Attaboy, Cash, you're a natural. I swear to God you are. No time to hang around. Time is money. Let's see how you handle the next scene.
It seems the next level, with the working title Derelict, is a combination of Doorway into Hell and Road to Ruin, but besides that, it's mostly unchanged as far as I could tell. Maybe a few little differences here and there. The next scene or level is called Weasel with this weird loading screen and is actually an early version of the bonus level Time to Die, which takes place in a warehouse. This level is very unfinished and most of the props aren't even textured. The next one is Scrapyard or White Trash in the final game. Not too much to say here. The second section of this level is also split into its own scene, just simply titled Scrap 2, which would become Fueled by Hate. From here on, it's even more eerie because there aren't as many recorded lines for Starkweather and text just appears in the top left to show what his dialogue is supposed to be. Next is Maul, later called The View of Innocence, and this level is very different, very weird and creepy in this version. Not that it isn't already in the base game, but not hearing Starkweather makes it all the more eerie, and I mean, just look at this load screen. Again, the director is silent, but gives demands over text, asking you to bring him 3 items before you can leave. And instead of tracking down a tape and a video camera like in the final version, you have to get 3 creepy dolls, which can't actually be accessed as far as I can tell in this version. The level is very buggy, and there are even messages that appear on screen, talking about the scripts fucking up if a hunter dies. Of course, the final version of this level is definitely more messed up, as chronologically this comes after Strapped for Cash, where you have to try and save your family members, only for you to uncover the videotape in View of Innocence of them being executed anyway. I mean, it's insanely fucked up, so despite this version feeling a little bit more eerie and unfinished, it's actually more toned down, to be honest. Next we have Church 2, which is drunk driving in the base game. Not really all that much different as far as I could tell. The next 2 levels take place at a zoo and are called Zoo 1 and 2, later known as Grounds for Assault and Strapped for Cash. For me, Strapped for Cash was always one of the most disturbing missions, given it isn't just Cash's life on the line, but also his family, who will be killed if you're caught. However, in this version, it doesn't seem Cash's family is held hostage. It's just Cash running through, killing war dogs, and trying to escape. The gun combat is noticeably different though, with this strange blur effect when getting hit, and very little damage taken by both the player and the enemy. Just standing there shooting into each other while eating bullets like it's Halo or Fortnite or something. The next stage, however, is much more interesting. It's a scrapped level called Pain Factory. Once again, it's missing any opening cutscenes like basically all of the other levels, but in this one, through text, the director tells you, "Welcome to the Pain Factory. Make it through the cage and up the lift will go." This level also featured the cut weapon, the spiked baseball bat, which also appears later on in this version of Divided They Fall, and actually is in the base game in the level Doing Time, but is just unobtainable. The tramp also makes an appearance here, which is cool, I guess. It seems this level takes place in like a prison or something, possibly the original Darkwoods Penitentiary, which might have just been originally named Dolmen State Pen, as we can see an inmate wearing a jumpsuit with that on his back. It could also just be like a completely different prison or different location entirely, but the level also features the smileys found in Mouth of Madness as well. In the level, Cash is lured into a cage where he's forced by the smileys to fight this Dolmen State Pen inmate in one-on-one combat. Then you deal with his friend, and we can actually see a camera on a tripod recording the whole thing, which is a nice detail. Once you escape the cage, the tramp then flees into a group of them, who you can actually attack and kill. Once you exit this gate, a few hunters spawn in and start chasing you, and you have to run away and hide and start picking them off before making your way back to the lift. Although there aren't really any shadows, so you're just kind of forced to fight it out. You can also acquire the ice pick here, another cut weapon not seen in the final version. The director tells Cash, "Pretty good. Next stop, more pain," as you go up the elevator. Next he tells you, you need a security card from that secure office. Get it, but try not to be spotted. That security door has a weight sensor. It takes 2 people to open it. Immediately, this part kind of reminds me of that section in Manhunt 2. I'm pretty sure it's in the level Sexual Deviance, where you use a similar system to open a door using the bodies of the hunters. However, in this one, it takes 2 people standing on the pressure plate to actually open the door. Again, though, there's no shadows. This definitely wasn't intentional because Starkweather tells you to not get spotted, so they just hadn't added them yet. So you just have to fight your way through it, which is pretty brutal if you've ever played these Manhunt games before, and not the preferred style of play, let's just say that. Especially in Manhunt 1, like the hand-to-hand combat is so brutal. Eventually though, you just have to kill these hunters, take one of their bodies to the pressure plate and step on it at the same time to open the door and get the key card, at which point Starkweather will tell you to go back to the lift, where he tells you to gear up on the 2nd floor and to take this guy's revolver, but warns that he's heavily guarded. You basically just fight your way through this floor until you go up again to the last floor with this final message. The top floor, you need to get into that stairwell. Use your access card, but don't. Then the message cuts off without finishing. There's a couple more enemies to kill, but not much to the rest of the level. You just continue down some more untextured stairs and into a dark tunnel, and that's the end. Continuing on, we have Graveyard Shift, this time called Pharmaceutical Works. This level looks pretty similar overall, just very janky and broken in this version. Next is called Asylum, with this really ominous load screen, later titled Mouth of Madness. The next level is called Cell Block, later Due in Time, with another really creepy load screen. And finally we get some more director recorded dialogue again.
Welcome. The idea of this little game is for you to execute all the hunters looking for you. That's if they don't find you first.
Now we've got another prison level, actually just titled Prison in this, which is actually Kill the Rabbit, aka the level where Starkweather betrays you, and Cash is actually meant to be killed at the end of the snuff film. There's also director dialogue here, and the rabbit noticeably looks way different. Next we get Divided They Fall under the working title of Abattoir, a slaughterhouse. This is the level with the Ramirez boss fight. Ramirez here has a much different design. Honestly, I kind of prefer this version, although I do like the original one that we got. Next we get Precinct, also known as Journo Streets, later called Press Coverage, where you have to escort the journalist. The text in the top left corner indicates that at this stage it was still a female character, despite them using a placeholder male model here for testing purposes, I guess. Next there's Subway, or Wrong Side of the Tracks, mostly the same from what I could tell. Train to Kill or Train Yard seems pretty similar as well, not much to say. Next is Estate or Border Patrol, one of the more infamous missions from the first game. Nothing too out of the ordinary aside from this Cerberus guard. Then we got more of the same with the mansion interior instead of key personnel. Seems pretty true to the shooting gallery that I remember. Then you have the final mission, Attic or Deliverance. We got the classic Pigsy boss fight here. It seems mostly unchanged at first, apart from a few different animations, and the fact that it's less scary in some ways, like Pigsy isn't squealing and screaming, running around chasing you, but also it's more quiet and subdued and is creepy in its own way. Pigsy has generic enemy dialogue sounding like a normal dude, which just does not sound right.
I'm gonna smash your face in.
And with the creepy ambience in the background and no revving of the chainsaw to be heard, it actually reminds me of the snuff film scenes in Sinister. Also, Pigsy here has no health bar.
So, I think you— oh shit! Holy fuck.
Don't get me wrong, I definitely prefer the final version, but this one has its own charm to it too, I guess. It ends with Pigsy dropping the chainsaw and you being able to pick it up and beat him to death with it, instead of the climactic cutscene that we got in the final version. And from here you can't really go any further it seems. You can't confront and kill Starkweather, and that's the prototype build. A lot of the things stay the same, but a lot of cool details and things that were changed along the way to be seen here, even pretty deep into development. Now, as for Manhunt 2, we have this PSP build from February 2007. Starting off in the first level Awakening, we get the same usual cutscene, although Leo has a bit of a bulkier look and a slightly different haircut. We get the classic Holter Graham voice in the cutscene, but a placeholder voice in the actual gameplay.
You want to get out of here? Then come on.
I'll scout ahead, Danny. You follow me whenever you're ready.
A lot of the other prisoners for some reason have orange jumpsuits, despite Danny's being light green for some reason. Also, check out this scene. The inmate you fight is actually the model they would use for the final version of Leo, so technically Leo is the first guy you kill in this version of Manhunt 2. Pretty neat. Danny actually doesn't throw up after this, which is also interesting.
We need a weapon. Get a syringe from the supplies office.
And even weirder, Leo straight up appears next to you in the shadows, glitching in and out, telling you to grab a syringe, completely negating the plot twist towards the end of the game of Leo being an alternate personality, a la Fight Club, which clearly inspired this game. I mean, it becomes pretty obvious in the base game too, but they just kind of throw out that mystery entirely here. Also, small thing, but it cuts to static instead of those project screens in the final version during cutscenes and executions. We get more visions of Leo and an execution on this guy, which we can't actually see. Most of this next section is the same. We get, I'm pretty sure, the same execution animations, just from a different camera angle as well, but this is just the first level. Not as many differences in Ghosts. It is missing the tutorial for the minigame for trying not to get caught by hunters when in the shadows, and there's also a slightly extended outro sequence.
Leo? That's right. But we don't have time to reminisce. Getting out was just the beginning, Danny. The project can't let us live. They can buy a private army if they want to, and they will.
Why did I leave myself these?
Forget about that. The project betrayed us, Danny. They ruined our lives, and now they're after us again.
Well, what are we gonna do?
We're gonna fight back.
Sexual deviance is mostly the same from what it looks like, just a bit buggier. Also, there's civilians here for some reason. Also, shout out to Yosarian the Assyrian for this gameplay, and for also showing some of the cut executions found in this 0.01 version, such as the guillotine one, which can be found only by clipping through this door. The next level, Red Light, features a puzzle at the end which was cut from the final version. I mean, it's not exactly a puzzle, you just have to throw a lure at this thing to get these stairs to fall down. There's also this cut adult toy weapon, complete with executions, which I already talked about and showed off in the cut content video. Also, there's the Blackjack from Manhunt 1, which appears here as well, complete with animations and everything. In Best Friends, a lot of it remains the same. It's still a Leo level, but this time we get the beta militia models, which look more like Cerberus from the first game, or even Combine from Half-Life 2. Safe House is also mostly unchanged as far as I could tell. B's honeypot is referred to as the honeypot, and not really too much to say here, except Danny in the opening cutscene has the orange jumpsuit, but then when the gameplay starts it goes back to the green. Also, when Judy dies at the end of the episode, it's actually Dr. White's model for some reason. Assassination is another Leo level, featuring more of the Combine-like militia. Doesn't seem like much else has changed here though. This next one though is really interesting. This in the base game is called Most Wanted, but here it is under the title of CIA Trap for unknown reasons. No CIA ever appear in the game or in this level as far as I know, although it definitely alludes to the MK Ultra-like mind control going on in the story with the project. I mean, the project probably is run by the CIA, but it's never stated in the actual game. All we have are a couple references to MK Ultra and things like that. Leo actually physically appears running down the street in the opening cutscene, and there are a few more usable guns, but that's about it for this level. Next, there's Ritual Cleansing, which is a little different layout-wise, as well as the soundtrack, which is also different from the final release. As for Origins, we get more orange jumpsuit Danny, but that's basically it as far as I could tell. Pretty much the same thing with Broadcast Interrupted. Altered State, however, is very weird. In this version of the intro, Danny is stabbed with a syringe by Dr. White, which incapacitates him and makes Leo disappear, which in the final version happens at the end of the level. But in this version, this is the ending.
Leo! What is it? You're too late.
It's taken care of, exactly as planned.
Yeah, for some reason Leo is in a wheelchair, despite being a figment of our imagination, an alternate personality of Danny, which makes me think that this may have been made back when Leo was meant to be an actual dude, before he kind of became the stand-in for Frisbee, but that's a whole other discussion for another day. I talked about Frisbee briefly in the Iceberg, but yeah, Manhunt 2 went through a lot of changes. Anyway, White stabs Danny again as he tries to help Leo. Domestic Disturbance has a few differences, including a lot of cut weapons such as the milk bottle and the newspaper, and these all do have executions and stuff, of course. Also, the SWATs, for some reason, just like the militia, have a more futuristic kind of looking design. Again, kind of looking like Combine and kind of looking like the SAS models from Counter-Strike. The last two levels, being the two different endings, are the buggiest and most unfinished. Personality Clash is barely playable in this build and has a ton of crashes, but besides that, there's not really too much to note, other than of course the placeholder voice work, which can be found also in Release Therapy.
Rotten hell, Leo!
And yeah, that's pretty much what I've seen from these two versions. Let me know of any other notable and cool differences you've noticed in these early editions. Overall thoughts, yeah, the Manhunt games are pretty cool. Check them out. And check out my other Manhunt videos if you're interested. I do want to make at least one more video about this series. Maybe even more, we'll see. Anyways, that's been it for me. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.